So ladies and gentlemen, we are once again darting around the place in today's video as there's quite a few tidbits to sink our teeth into with regards to the DCU, of course. James Gunn on the Superman World Tour is being asked all kinds of questions from press that are giving very interesting answers that have got a lot of us thinking about, you know, what could this mean with Wonder Woman? What could that mean with Batman in the DCU? And we've got other bits to go over, of course, some interesting Lantern stuff. So without rambling too much in the intro, I would just appreciate if you guys enjoy this video. Consider liking it. It would mean a lot. It helps the video grow. And of course, if you're not subscribed already and you want to see more videos like this in the realms of DC, go ahead and click that subscribe button. So the big news on Friday, of course, I had to do a present/future Boba edit in that video with, is Matt Reeves announcing the Batman Part 2 script and how it's complete. But at the time, obviously James Gunn and Peter Safran still had to read it. Now, we had Jake Hamilton ask about Matt Reeves announcing the script in an interview, and Gunn says that Peter Safran has read it, but he hasn't just yet. Now, I don't know if that's going to change by the time I've read this, but I don't blame the guy at all. Like, he is insanely busy right now. The press junkets, all of these interviewers from different outlets asking them questions. So trying to fit in, you know, reading the script when really you probably want to try and fit in getting some sleep, I can understand that. So my thoughts on this is, yeah, fair enough, Peter Safran's read it. I am expecting, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so, you know, maybe after Superman, to hear about the green light, the official green light for pre-production for the Batman Part 2. Now, of course, Gunn could, you know, maybe greenlight the script before then. Maybe he will read it back in his hotel room or whatever. And I know some of you say, but Boba, this is like the first draft. Surely this is going to take a while longer before it gets the green light for pre-production. Well, that's the thing. Like, Matt Reeves, and he said this even in like a court document with that whole like the Batman suing thing that happened a while back. Matt Reeves' first draft is usually way more retooled and refined than that of your typical writer's first draft. So Matt Reeves would extensively edit it as he goes along. So whether he's halfway through the script, 3/4 of the way through the script, he might go back a dozen pages, reread that, and change it up, maybe condense it, maybe add new bits in. So normally when you may do a little bit of that before you hand in your first draft, and then you kind of go back to it again after getting notes from the studio or whoever it is on said script, Matt Reeves, this is why it takes so long. He's already kind of done that, been there, done that a gazillion times before it even reaches James Gunn. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me if Peter Safran, who's already read it, has given some impressions to Gunn, been like, dude, super happy with it. When Gunn eventually reads it, he might be like, you know what, Matt? I don't even need to say anything. You've got the green light for pre-production. Let's get this thing going. And then, as I've kept saying, hopefully around about near to March or March of 2026, the movie will start shooting. And then, hopefully going into August, September, we could start hearing rumblings about casting for the Batman Part 2. Now, we've already had Mattson Tomlin, alongside the script post on Friday, post his notebooks that he used for writing. And I love how he's written Gotham Project on one of them, man. What I would do to get access to these notes, my God. I've also seen, just before anyone says it, a lot of people noticed that Eiza Gonzalez liked the post about the Batman Part 2 script on Instagram, and people were saying, oh, Matt Reeves followed her a few days ago, and he only follows actors involved with the Batman. I feel like he follows maybe one or two other actors. But yeah, it is mostly, I suppose, the Batman cast and crew and whatnot. Now, some people were saying, could she be Montoya or something? This is where I think we need to reel it back a little bit. I mean, never say never, and I believe, if I remember correctly, did Eiza Gonzalez try out for Catwoman, maybe? And it wouldn't be a massive shock if Matt Reeves has had some roles that he's written during the writing process for the Batman Part 2 with certain actors in mind. He did the exact same thing for Robert Pattinson as Batman, Paul Dano for the Riddler. So maybe, let's just entertain this hypothetically, he could have had a role with Eiza Gonzalez in mind. But I would still say let's just kind of, reserve any kind of expectation there. Because with stuff like this, you can easily go down the rabbit hole, and I've seen people say, oh my god, she must be playing Talia, because this is still secretly, the long road to Pattinson being the DCU Batman. What The Hollywood Reporter recently said in their Heat Vision post, saying, you guys can stop asking James Gunn about this now. The Batman Part 2 script is in. Filmmaker Matt Reeves revealed that he and co-writer Matt Tomlin have turned in the draft, sharing an image Friday of them with the script. But you can ask Gunn about who's writing the Brave and the Bold movie, because we're not convinced there is one. Now, people were saying, oh, that's because that writer that Gunn has alluded to, but he doesn't want to reveal because of that putting pressure on the person writing the Brave and the Bold. But really, it's Matt Reeves, and this is all a big ploy for the Part 2 script. You get where people are going with that. No, I think, even The Hollywood Reporter could be implying there that we're not convinced there is one, because maybe Gunn, as he said himself, is like a driving force behind writing the DCU Batman script. So maybe it's him. Going down this path even more, we've had Home of DCU and a few other places say, now I wonder if Drew Goddard is the one writing Brave and the Bold, because Collider was interviewing James Gunn about various input that he received on developing Superman from those who make up the DC Studios writers team. I'm sure many of you have seen that picture with all of them together in that room. And Drew Goddard is one of those people, and apparently he was really important and really helpful with Superman. Now, Drew Goddard, for the longest time, has been rumored to be developing something at DC Studios. I mean, again, he's a part of that team, so clearly he's doing something, but apparently an untitled movie. Now, if we're to run with what James Gunn has said with, let's keep the Brave and the Bold writer in the dark, I'm working with him, but they don't need that kind of pressure. If we hypothetically assume that's true, what if it is someone like Drew Goddard, and Gunn, is very much so heavily collaborating to the point of being a driving force behind the Brave and the Bold to make sure it's really done right. He wants to make sure one of the main Trinity characters is executed properly. But maybe through just hearing little comments like this from Gunn from various interviews that are going on right now, the Superman World Tour, it will be interesting to kind of bookmark this thought from this video and see if it actually turns out to be true one day in the future. Now, still on the DCU Batman talk here, when being asked about what would Superman's reaction be for the first time when he sees a man dressed up as a bat, James Gunn said, first of all, we don't know he hasn't already seen a man dressed up as a bat, but I think that he'd probably see a kindred spirit in that, another crazy person wearing a crazy costume with a very different intent. James Gunn's answer was still obviously not really getting to the heart of it. He wouldn't want to reveal all of his cards, but I do want to also acknowledge what Gunn said. David Corenswet Superman has been active in the DCU for 3 years. Batman in the DCU, as we've explored thoroughly here on the channel, all while we're waiting for more firm answers. We already know that he has a bat family of some size built up around him. There's no way he's only going to be 5 years into his career. To have a bat family represented on screen the way Peter Safran and James Gunn have gone on about in the past, without me going down that rabbit hole, because I've talked about that enough, maybe they have interacted. Now, that doesn't mean they've had a full-on world's finest adventure or arc of an adventure, right, that we missed out on in the past. But they could have interacted in some way, shape, or form. Superman can fly around the world kind of like that. Maybe Batman, obviously, without going full-on BVS or Dark Knight Returns, has kept some tabs on Superman. And obviously, the future is bright with regards to how a Justice League isn't around just now. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But it will one day. And the Hall of Justice will come into that. Batman will come into that. The Trinity will come into that. So let me know, do you think that he's already seen a man dressed up as a bat? Or would you like that introduction to actually happen for the first time in a World's Finest project? Now, Brandon Davis for Phase Hero asked James Gunn about, when are we going to see Superman again? And Gunn replied, a couple of years. Well, no, you'll see him before then. Now, some people I saw were speculating immediately about Peacemaker, but I think Peacemaker is more like that huge cameo that we've heard about, to me, is more likely Lex Luthor. I mean, obviously, I have no proof for that at all, because you could argue it could be Superman. But I think when Gunn first said a couple of years, but then he changed his answer in the interview to, no, you were seeing him before then. I think he then remembered, Supergirl. So in the same way that we're all speculating that Kara, maybe towards the end of the movie, will have like a minute scenes, nothing too crazy, nothing too in your face, because she might want to go collect crypto to then go on her Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow adventure in that movie. And as David Corenswet said months back now, that crypto, as I keep mentioning here, is a foster kind of situation. So not like truly necessarily his, but he's looking after him for someone else. So I think Kara would appear in Superman, maybe, right? And I think in return, you could have, before Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow kicks off towards the first, 10 minutes of the film, maybe technically, when Gunn was thinking, oh no, you'll see him before then, you would have Superman appear in some way, shape, or form at the beginning of the film. Maybe there's a monologue from Kara talking about her cousin, and then David Corenswet's face pops up in the film. Up next, we need to talk about the Hall of Justice teaser that we got. Now, we've all known, ever since covering filming, that they were filming in the actual location that inspired the Hall of Justice in the comics. And now, thanks to a new, I believe, car ad, which shows some footage of Lois going to the Hall of Justice, which I believe is connected to that scene where Lois goes to Guy Gardner to get his help for Superman, but it ends up being Mr. Terrific, who evidently helps out in the trailers that we've seen. So we see that she storms out of there, takes the piss out of Guy Gardner's haircut, and now we see an exterior shot with Lois going to her car, right? And we see in the background the Hall of Justice, and it's literally still only just getting its name put on there, Hall of Justice. Now, we have Brandon Davis for Phase Hero once again asking about planning things out that are huge in the future, perhaps already considering seeing this HQ evolve into something more, right? So Justice Gang to Justice League. And Gunn says, I know more now than I knew then. I mean, I know kind of where we're planning on going, God willing. I know what the basic plan is. You know, you see the Hall of Justice, and you see that it's not even finished yet. They're still putting a name up there, and it's owned by Maxwell Lord, and he owns the Justice Gang, basically. So again, I think this is the very preliminary stages, this is obvious, of the Justice League. We know that members of the Justice Gang really don't agree with the name of the Justice Gang. That's just like a Guy Gardner thing that he wants to call it. That is evidently something he's building towards. To me, a somewhat sequel to Superman would be building upon that Hall of Justice, which is housing the Justice Gang, but who knows what it could house towards the end of the movie. Maybe they're truly like, let's not call it the Justice Gang. Let's recruit more characters, just like what we saw in the Peacemaker trailer, where Peacemaker was even interviewed for a spot for the Justice Gang. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to copy and paste from the comics. As I always say here, perhaps a bit too much, adaptations don't copy and paste. So I can already imagine some people being like, oh, that's a bit strange, right? Like, sure, Maxwell Lord in the comics, you know, he's more Justice League International based. Sure, Batman's in that and everything. But that's what I'm saying. I think when I've always said that they may do a Justice League International thing in the future, I've always said influence. It's not like we're necessarily going to actually get something called Justice League International. But I think Gunn's going to borrow from all of those bits of source material to build up what this Hall of Justice is becoming, with the very name being put on the outside of the building. So right now we know Maxwell Lord literally owns this. He owns the Justice Gang. But where's that going to go? Because right now, as the Hall of Justice, they're probably, I suspect, not going to be called the Justice League International when they continue to get more members. But will Maxwell Lord's new enterprise here of literally owning the Hall of Justice, recruiting more heroes, bring in Bruce Wayne, bring in Batman to like step into a bit more control? Maybe this is going to be the slippery slopes, or like, you know, certain alleyways into more aspects of Maxwell Lord's personality where, again, I don't think they're going to do like a really, really shady version of Maxwell Lord. I do think, obviously, there's certain things we will learn about him as to his motivations for having a Justice Gang and whatnot. But I think as we go further down that road, you're going to see that clearly evolve into the Justice League with Batman, the Trinity, even more heroes, Superman's involvement into this Hall of Justice that is still only being occupied by a few characters. But I guess what I'm getting round to here is, do you believe that James Gunn's secret project that he's having so much fun with, the one that nobody knows about or whatever he keeps saying, is more of a thing that is following this path into developing that even more, rather than just like it acutely being something separate like world's finest, Batman, Superman? I can see a story where, I'm not saying they're going to get rid of Maxwell Lord anytime soon, but there may be like a debate as to what this thing is, what this enterprise is that he started. He started something good, but it needs to be maybe purchased anonymously by a certain other person, with Batman maybe being very interested, and maybe a restructuring of, this is clearly so corporate, but should it be corporate superhero suits, or should we kind of recruit more heroes and make it more of a league of heroes, a Justice League? But if you have any ideas of where this could go or should go, let me know down in the comments below. Now, kind of speaking of Wonder Woman just there, well, the Adria Arjona thing is continuing on and on. And once again, this comes down to the following thing. People thinking that always means something, when it doesn't really. It doesn't mean that it couldn't mean something one day. But Gunn said, I follow Adria on Instagram, but everyone came out and thought he just followed her. That means she's Wonder Woman. But he mentioned that he followed her years ago. They made a movie together like years and years back. But he does also acknowledge that she'd be a great Wonder Woman, by the way. Now, I also want to stress here, just because he said that, she'd be a great Wonder Woman, by the way, since we're on the topic, that it doesn't guarantee, obviously, that she's going to be Wonder Woman. However, I would be pretty damn surprised if she doesn't audition for the role. She seems to be popping off more and more, obviously, post Andor, and, I really like her for the role as well. So I do expect, low-key expect, to see her try out for Wonder Woman. She might not get it, but one day I low-key feel like we're gonna see that article, say that she's one of the actors or actresses actually contending for the role. Now, a teeny tiny little update on The Authority. We had Blavity interview Gunn as a part of the Superman World Tour, and when asking if that's still happening, what's going on with that, could we see Maria Gabriela de Fria, still reprise her role in that? Gunn said, yeah, it could for sure happen. It could happen. It's not something that's going especially quickly right now, but it could happen for sure. I find this interesting because I do feel like he would have just said, recently maybe axed it, because this comes under the umbrella of the larger theories as to which movie was Gunn talking about when he said that he recently killed a DC movie. And we were talking about, is it The Authority? Is it this? Is it that? I put my money maybe on Constantine 2, because Keanu Reeves, apparently what we've heard through the grapevine, I think from the guy who plays Lucifer, he said that Keanu really wasn't actually liking the script, and Gunn said that the screenplay wasn't ready, and I couldn't do a movie where the screenplay is not good. Could that be Constantine 2 is what I was wondering, and now he's kind of still saying that The Authority is alive, granted that it's barely crawling along in terms of progress. I feel it's going to be interesting to see if that survives or if it turns into something animated. I think they're kind of waiting to see what they can do there, how things develop amongst the first initial projects, and so I would kind of put The Authority as more on the shelf, not cancelled, but not really making significant developments. So maybe it was Constantine 2. Now, going back to Superman here, it turns out that Clark Kent will have hypnotic glasses. And this is something that I'm seeing some people be like, I don't know how to feel about this. Like, you could have the suspension of disbelief thing there, and just, the whole posture, the way that Clark acts different. But I'm kind of, believe it or not, in James Gunn's camp. Like, obviously, you can suspend your disbelief with so many things in the DCU because, okay, an alien from Krypton actually getting powers from the Yellow Sun when he's here on Earth. Okay. But to suspend your disbelief with somebody who's wearing glasses to just separate their identity in where, you really could still identify that, hey, that looks like Superman. I do understand where Gunn says that he really struggled with that one. And he says that the Hypno glasses were canon in the comics. Well, it's kind of been forgotten, but that is from the comics. Now, that is true, and I do think it is an interesting way to handle it. I don't know if the movie gets into how Clark got the Hypno glasses. Is it like a contraption from the Fortress or something? And I've seen a lot of people say, well, if he's got hypnotic glasses, that alter the way people see him as Clark Kent, which really does create a bit of a separation from Superman. Then why does he still act all goofy and this, that, and the other? My answer to that would be like, that's still fine. Even when he has hypnotic glasses, which change people's perception on him to kind of be like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to associate you with Superman. That doesn't mean that his demeanor, his body language, the way he talks and stuff like that doesn't still aid the whole different perception that separates him as Clark Kent from Superman. That still causes a separation there. So, I don't know. It's really not a big deal to me. I've seen a lot of people have different opinions. I would love to know yours down in the comments below. I'm actually more on Gunn's side here because adding a little something like that, why not? Now, lastly for this video, guys, something that is pretty cool is an exclusive Lantern story from Nexus Point News saying casting details reveal DC's Lanterns will explore Hal Jordan's childhood. So they say as DC Studios' Lanterns enters its final weeks of shooting, sources tell Nexus Point News that the series is set to feature flashbacks to Green Lantern Hal Jordan's childhood. So they go on to say here, as announced, Lanterns has cast older and younger versions of Jon Stewart's parents, which we've covered before. In addition, casting was underway for Jon's brothers and a child version of Jon, which all point to flashbacks depicting Jon's upbringing and family life. Missing from these announcements was news of Hal's family. Casting details reveal Hal's parents, Martin and Jessica Jordan, are being cast for the series as well. Now, the casting descriptions are interesting because it kind of gives you a peek into what they could be going for here, and it could potentially, from what is being described, be going into secret origins. Martin is described as handsome, confident, charming, but hides a deep sadness. Similar to the comics, he's a pilot and hero to young Hal, who he has a very close relationship to. The series is also confirmed to depict the death of Martin Jordan and the influence it has on Hal as a child. Jessica is described as being emotionless after the death of her husband, and she is being cast for a funeral scene. In addition, a child version of Hal is being cast for multiple scenes. He's described as defiant, spirited, brave, and a rule breaker who follows in his father's footsteps. Now, again, I totally see what people are saying when it comes to secret origins here and what they can kind of be lifting and putting into the show. Flashbacks is very interesting. We've known about this again for quite a while, given that we heard quite a while back about Jon Stewart's. There's like two different sets of his parents, younger and older, in present day. With that being said, I wouldn't get your hopes up for, because I've seen a lot of people ask about Hal Jordan in his prime. I honestly feel like they're going to stick to these flashbacks with him being a kid, like getting into the roots of that. Unless you want to believe that they're going to use like CGI, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like Hayden Christensen, somewhat dot technology where they somewhat de-age Carl Chandler down to a scene where he's in his 30s or mid-30s being Hal Jordan. You could always argue that, but there's something in me that feels like they're probably not going to do that. I think you're going to cut to present-day Hal scenes, and then as the story unfolds, you're going to get this exposition for Jon's character, like it from the past and what brought him to be who he is today, and the same with Hal Jordan. But with it sounding like things are going to be adapted, or at least influenced, again, not copy and paste, but influenced from Green Lantern Secret Origin, and all the speculation we were getting into with Atrocitus and that casting we heard a while back, which really sounded like Atrocitus. It really is starting to open up things even more. So let me know down in the comments if you want to see me do a deep dive into Green Lantern Secret Origin, how the Lantern show could adapt that with Carl Chandler and Aaron Pierce, Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, and just other aspects, right? With this investigation in the American heartland and how it could all piece together. Now, as for the actual first look, that's something I think we should start entertaining as well with Lanterns. When are we going to see more? Because I'm itching to see more. They are filming very, very soon. We're in July now. They're wrapping this month. Now, Apocalyptic Horseman said it wraps in a few weeks, so maybe we get something soon, but I'm leaning towards New York Comic Con. And I think that is very, very fair enough. As we know, New York Comic Con is in October, and I've been talking about how for San Diego Comic Con, I really do feel like they can show more than just doing like a little Peacemaker thing, Supergirl's in the thick of post-production right now. They could show stuff there. But maybe if we don't get as much as we would like to see out of San Diego Comic-Con, I feel like things will be cooked a lot more by the time we get to New York Comic Con in October, to the point of where I think it would be weird if we didn't get anything Lanterns by that point, just because Lanterns is looking to come out early 2026. So again, I'm not saying like trailers and crazy things like that, but come October, if we haven't got a bit more of like DC coverage with Supergirl, Lanterns, and whatnot, it would feel a bit weird. But that is everything I want to cover in today's video, guys. Just another ramble of tidbits and whatnot that I wanted to get to. So let me know your thoughts on everything we had to cover down in the comments below. I love reading what you guys have to say. I reply where I can, so make sure you do get involved. If you're watching right now, I would really appreciate a like as well. It really does. I'm not just saying this, but it does contribute to engagement in the video, which pushes it more out there in the algorithm. Consider subscribing for more DC videos like this. If you're into DC, this is definitely the place to be. But until next time, guys, I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.